Hey everybody, Coach Kassem from N1 Education here to talk to you guys about back training, specifically how you can get better back training with this brand new device, the 4-in-1 bar that we designed with Prime Fitness USA. We're going to go through some of the features, but we're also just going to talk about the things that you should be looking for if you want your back training to be optimal, period. So you can figure out, based off of the tools that you have, what adjustments do you need. So we're looking at this bar here. Really quick rundown of the features before we get into all the education stuff. This one has 4 settings. If you guys are familiar with Prime, you might have seen the 3-in-1 bar that has the 3 settings. The new setting that this one offers is a fully pronated version. So what that allows me to do is go to the full overhand position if I like. What that's going to do is it's going to give us the same versatility that we would use in kind of a standard straight bar. The reason that that's unique to this is that you need a certain amount of width for this grip to actually become valuable. If it's like too narrow, it's not really going to do any good. So the other obvious change that you'll see is that we've changed the width here. But with these 4 settings, what you'll see is you're able to replace or actually improve on a lot of other accessories. So if you're limited on space or you just want to be more efficient in training, you can get everything from the semi-supinated to neutral grips to semi-pronated and fully pronated positions with just this one piece. It's really simple. You just spin that dial, pop it out, adjust it to wherever you want it, and tighten it back down. So moving on, you will notice, like I said, that we have updated the width of this bar. So it's now about 20 inches. So in comparison, if you have the older 3-in-1 version, you can kind of see how this width sets up. That's going to be very important when we look at getting proper back training, because one of the limitations with back training is actually being able to allow the arm to go in the correct path where we can isolate lats or upper back or rear delts or whatever we may want to be doing this pulling exercise for. Having a width that is going to be more appropriate in terms of matching your shoulder width and allowing the arm to comfortably go around the rib cage is going to give you the most versatility and the most effective back workouts. So this narrow one here, the old 3-in-1 version, is about 14 inches. So if you are a very small framed person, then that might provide similar versatility. But if you are a normal to larger sized individual, which is pretty much going to cover almost all males, this 20-inch version is going to be way superior. I'm going to show you guys on different body structures how width comes into play in terms of the actual recruitment of your back. The other change that we made, well, we'll go back one here, just so you guys can see the width. If you guys have the really old version of, handles that kind of had this grip on it, the mag handle, you can see it's very similar in width, maybe just a small amount wider because of some other changes that we made, and that is actually what we did to the grip. So we changed the mechanics of the grip. So the whole RO-T8 family has this hook style grip here with this platform to support the hand that gives you quite a mechanical advantage when you are gripping. It prevents you from needing to use a strap, allows you to still neurologically connect to the load because you're not just hanging onto a strap or having your hand locked in there, and you're also able to fight through fatigue or just not get your grip fatigued, period, while doing your back training. So it's very versatile. One of the issues with the old system, though, is that it had too aggressive of an angle at the wrist. So if you look at, here's a comparison of the 4-in-1 and the 3-in-1, this one has just off neutral grip position. So if you guys look at the angle here, right, the old handle was pitched more like this. And what that did is, you can see there's this scrunching at the wrist, this extensive flexion going on at the wrist, and what that's going to do is it's going to take my arm with it. So it kind of puts me in a position where I'm going to want to rotate a little bit more. Ultimately, it becomes uncomfortable and actually can work against the advantage that the grip is providing, because it's kind of creating this lever on my arm. So in addition to being able to bring this out wider, we made it more neutral so that now it's actually a more natural pulling movement, and you really don't even feel the handle at all. It's almost effortless to hold it, and that should be the goal. So now in a fixed handle, we're able to get a much similar feel to the free-flowing RO-T8 handles because we've matched that angle up to line up better with your body. If we want to look at comparison here, that mag grip, that older one, still had that same aggressive angle. So you can see that extensive flexion at the wrist, and you can actually kind of tell in here a little bit, you know, if you look at my arm, you can tell that there's a different rotation going on in my upper arm. So it's in the exact same position, and that is because here, like when I have something here, I have the ability to kind of flex and move that. But when I'm aggressively stuck that way, I don't really have the ability to rotate my arm where it's going to best suit the muscles that I've contracted. So this allows me to then be able to move a little bit more naturally, focus on the muscles that I want to contract. So that's one of the reasons that we really, you know, in a perfect world, we would be able to move freely in most exercises, especially pulling exercises. This is pretty darn close to feeling like there's almost nothing there, which is the goal of a good handle or a good back piece in general. So let's look at how this is going to affect your back mechanics here. So we have two rows here basically holding in the same position. We have the 4-in-1 here and the 3-in-1 on the side here. What I want you guys to look at is how the width is affecting the recruitment of these muscles. So two areas to focus on. One is going to be what's going on in this area between the shoulder blades, those rhomboids. So if we're getting more range of motion, we should see that that stuff is actually able to come in and retract more. The other thing I really want you to pay attention to is the angle the humerus ends up in terms of rotation. So if we're trying to pull with our back, we need to be able to control this position. If I am winging out like that, all right, anything that is going to cause me to internally rotate is going to take away from the contractions in the back muscle. So you will see that most prevalent with a handle that is too narrow or a handle that makes you do this. So here we see a change in the rotation and the retraction that Austin is able to get. Even though we're biasing lats here, we're seeing just better range of motion, period, because he's actually able to get his shoulders back and around, his rhomboids around, even though his goal in this particular exercise was not to get here, was actually to contract lats. He still, even though he wasn't trying to get full retraction, was limited even from getting the little bit that he needed just to focus on lats here. So you see internal rotation and not the same amount of retraction in that upper back. Additionally, the thing you want to see if we're focusing on lats is to be able to have a movement that is more like this. So that looks better for you guys this way versus a movement that is like this. Anything that the arm is coming out or extensively back and up, that's not going to be lats, because remember, our lats are going to pull this way. So this arm here should be getting close like this as we're going down. So anything that is pulling out or causing things to come up is not going to be biased towards lats. It's going to be very, very hard. Lats essentially are going to be stabilizing in any movement where that is the arm path that you end up with. So if we compare that over with a different body structure, so that was Austin. This is me, a little bit wider body type, a little bit more tissue to wrap around, both good and bad. But you will see is that that change in range of motion gets exaggerated a little bit more. So what I did is I used the mag bar, which is a little bit wider or significantly wider than the 3-in-1, but just a tiny bit smaller than the 4-in-1. And what you'll see is even though they're similar width, that change in the angle at the wrist creates a huge difference in terms of the amount of rotation that I end up with. So because that other handle is like this, what it does is it does this to my arms as I pull on it. So I'm getting that internal rotation. I'm not getting as much scapular retraction, but you'll see I'm getting a lot of elevation. Because it's doing this to me, I have to do this. So a lot more upper trap is getting engaged there when I don't want it to. So you'll see that if we want to be able to do upper back, we will still have more versatility with this. But here it doesn't really give you the option. Like you're trying to do lats and it takes to upper back anyway because of that aggressive wrist flexion manipulating your arm position. So let's look at a side view here. So we got the 4-in-1 against the mag with Austin's body type. It's actually the nicest comparison that we could have done here. So what things I want you to focus on, if we're seeing good back stuff here, right? One, we should see good range of motion. This isn't particularly biased towards anything other than just showing you guys the difference in the versatility here. So a huge thing, it's very subtle in some people, but it makes a huge difference in contraction, is I want you to look at how much of Austin's chest we see over here versus how much we see over here, because that's going to give you an idea of where the shoulder position actually ended up being. Because a lot of times in an inefficient back piece, when you get here and you can't get those lats, you'll get, the shoulder will keep extending, but you'll get kind of this forward movement because it doesn't fit you very well. So here, what you see is there's a lot of Austin's chest exposed because he's actually, even though we're getting all, you know, relatively similar amount of extension, in order to get the extension, this movement over here with the mag grip, because of this, what had to happen is those shoulders had to go forward, whereas here he's able to bring those back, right? And I promise you guys, this is not acting. These guys couldn't do it if they wanted to anyway. Even though their execution's really good, they really suck at doing things wrong. So like this is real world situation with, you know, not a ton of load, but just a small amount of load. So you can imagine if we really started putting a lot of load, like this is a photo load here, right? Like just enough so that the cable's not falling on the floor, just showing you guys the biomechanics. You can imagine that if we were using a working set type load, how much more drastic this change in mechanics would be. And we're going to put up some training footage this week using the new bars. I've put a couple sneak peek videos out. So now we're going to move on to like the traditional standard neutral grip bar, just that, you know, the one that's typically in the gym, you know, it's got just the big like C things with the neutral handles in between. And that one tends to be wider. There's varying widths depending on the brand, but because you don't have the hook grip, one of the big things is, well, you're not going to be able to have that advantage in the grip, so you're likely going to lose a little bit in terms of how hard can I go, how heavy can I go, how long can I go without using a strap. But having that advantage style grip, right, that stabilizes the hand, what you will see is the tendency for this with that neutral grip that's wide is the tendency is to do this, right, which can make it very hard to do lats. So too wide is not good either. So it's not wider is better, narrow is bad. It's that we want a width that works in this range that's not out here, not in here. And so this one here, you can see from the width here, right? It's very wide. So it's actually driving his arms out a little too much. So if we're trying to focus on lats, this makes it very hard to do that thing where we want to bring the arm in close to the body. So here we're able to get more extension, more lat. You can just tell that there's lats up here. Over here just turned into an all upper back exercise. You see his traps and his rear delts. Round boys are all doing the work. There really wasn't any lat. Here you can see all of this lat tissue nice and bundled up. So big difference in terms of being able to have versatility for the lats. So the next one we'll look at, and this, I'm going to bring it up because people still use this. I don't know why, but that dinky little V-bar thing, you know, that's this wide. You got bodybuilders that are this freaking wide, using the handle this wide, and they're doing stuff like this, and on top of that, they're usually yanking the whole stack or whatever. Whatever. I mean, you learn or you don't. That's it, right? But for comparison's sake, here's that narrow V-bar. This is an exaggeration per se in terms of how this would be, because we would never use this implement, period, for lats, but people still do. So if you look at this, his arms are essentially like this to be able to do that. So that's a lot of internal rotation there, which means, okay, that's not going to be lats, because in order for this to be lats, we need this to be able to pull here, not being winged out like that. So same shot over here, but just showing you here I got that neutral handle, and Austin's not a tremendously wide individual, so you have a wider person and this is going to look even worse. So if we move on here and we look at kind of the side view of that, you can see, like, look how long the forearm is here. Everything's nice and lined. We got a lot of Austin's chest sticking out there. Over here at this handle, not a lot of chest. Everything's kind of winged out that way. It's just not an efficient tool for back training, period, because it allows very little range of motion. Really, the only place you could use it is like tiny little reps in the stretch position if you wanted to use it just because you want to use it. But I really wouldn't even use it for that purpose. Okay. And then if you guys want to see a real crime against biomechanics, I did a few reps with the bar. So this is me. If I pull the bar all the way to my chest, you know, because that's what you got to do. You got to get the bar to your chest, right? This is what it looks like, right? I'm essentially doing this at that point in time versus what I'm doing with the 4-in-1 and coming in and pulling my lats. This is me doing my darndest to like just do that little partial rep, and you can see like there's very little extension, right? And like my arms are not even to my side in this particular, and that's as much range of my motion. So if you were looking at the side, that would be the range of motion if I actually use the active range where I could use that bar and have my lats engaged. Because up here, yeah, there's no lats engaged. They're stabilizing at best. Okay, let's move on to another feature. So those are all just, that was just the differences of the neutral grip function alone. If we look at the variations as this carries over to the others, so here we're doing a comparison of the semi-supinated. Now that you guys kind of got the idea, we're just going to do 3 shots at once. So we got the 4-in-1 here. We see a lot of Austin's chest. We see good extension at the humerus. Here we have the 3-in-1. Here we have the 3-in-1. Here we have the mag. And what you'll see, again, is we see way more of Austin's chest over here because that shoulder is further back. Over here with the more aggressive wrist flexion, we're not able to get that. That shoulder is lined forward, even in a semi-supinated position. And then here, with the 3-in-1, actually, you know, it turns out just to be a little bit better in the shoulder position, but you can't get the same extension because you don't have the width that you do in the 4-in-1. Looking at the back view here for that semi-supinated to give you guys a better comparison. So if you look at, it's very easy to see here how big of a magnitude that wrist position is making. So here you can just tell how much further back he's actually able to get the humerus, not just like how much he's able to do this, but this, right? So you can actually see this is wrapped around. This stuff is all coming in together. Here you can see scapular still open. He's not able to pull around here because that flex grip is essentially making it seem like the handle is artificially narrower, if you will, in addition to kind of creating some of that elevation type movement. So even though the intent here is still trying to drive me down, trying to get those lats engaged, he's not able to actually finish the range of motion on that side. The only way to be able to get further back would be to let the tension off the lats and kind of like do this, right? Well, you get further back, but it'd actually be lengthening of the lats because you'd have to deviate the arm out like this. Okay, moving on. Here's the 4-in-1 semi-supinated versus the 3-in-1. Same problems, but even just a little bit narrower. Same comparison you'll see, but there's even just a little bit less range of motion on that side. Okay. Let's look over at a different structure type. So this is me, bigger body type doing it, and what you'll see, that change is going to make a bigger difference with the bigger you are, and that goes for frame size as well as just muscle, because you got tricep and lats that start to run into each other, which means you need to have a more flexible path for your arm to go. Have that versatility, be able to have a more kind of arcing arm path as you will as you go through the movement. So you can see here, 4-in-1, everything's nice and retracted. I'm starting to sweat a little bit, and everything is down and in, so that's good full range of motion. Over here you can see it, you can tell just by my shirt, you can see my arm still out here in front of my lats. I'm not able to get that same range of motion. A little bit more internal rotation there, and if you guys have really good eyes, you can see that there's just a little bit more trap engagement with that other bar. Now let's look at the pronated, the semi-pronated first before we get to fully pronated. So this is the one that you would use if you're actually trying to have the elbows go out because you're trying to work more upper back. So now our focus is not does the arm come down here. Now our focus is does this arm line up with everything here. If you guys have been to a camp or a clinic that we do it on one, you'll notice that we teach how to row for rear delt, and it's all about lining up the fibers of the rear delt with the scapula and the traps for maximal stability and function there. So what you'll see is that's a place where you're able to get quite a bit of extension, and the rhomboid and everything are all nice and fully retracted. So now we're really focused on this being able to come in here and getting a lot of extension because it's focused more on upper back and rear delts. So you can tell here we're able to get a lot of that with the mag. All right, now the mag was driving us out when we were trying to do lats, But because of this, it's also not able to let us go out as much as we need to when we want to fully optimize upper back. So it's not technically better at both. It's worse at both because it's stuck kind of somewhere in between. You can't get really good full range of motion contractions with it. Now, if you've used that bar compared to a regular bar, you'll be like, oh, it's an improvement. And you use this bar compared to the bag bar, and you'll be like, whoa, jeez, what was I thinking before? I thought that was good. This was amazing. So you can see a lot less retraction there, a lot less extension. You'll see that on the side. And then when we go even narrower with the 4-in-1, now we get a lot more internal rotation. So both of these have some of that internal rotation, but much more in the shorter bar than the longer bar. But between the grip and the width and all that stuff, we're able to get maximal extension over here. I believe we have a side view of this as well. Awesome. So now we can really see, and this is an area where we want to see this being driven back. We want to see a lot of his pec, not because he's doing this, but because that shoulder girdle is going back instead of coming around like so. So you can see with that narrow grip, really that shoulder is kind of coming around forward. Elbow's not even behind the back here. Okay, here we got elbow past the body and the shoulder is back. Here, again, elbow's not even past the body, shoulder's way forward. Neither of those are getting optimal retraction. Neither of those are getting optimal extension. So it's not going to be better for upper traps, not going to be better for rhomboids, not going to be better for rear delts, teres, all of the upper back musculature that you would want to train. You're going to get way more range of motion here, both in the lengthened and the shortened positions. Okay, the last one, the new feature on here is the fully pronated, so all the way to palms facing down. Now, I'll be honest, okay, it's only so wide, so if you want to do traditional wide grip pull downs like this, well, it's only 20 inches, but it is wide enough for you to be able to do like pull aparts, so basically rows for upper back with a pronated position. Same thing with pull downs for upper back. You're just not able to do those fully wide ones, which are in limited range of motion exercise as it is, and for that I still don't like this bar. I like to have like the long bar with the movable handle. So if we compare how these things function at a similar width, what you will see is with that mechanical grip advantage that we get with the rotate style handle here is Austin is able to allow his arms to move a little bit more freely and naturally. He's able to get more extension at the humerus. You'll see more of that chest, more extension here, not as much extension, and the big deal is that shoulder, right? It's just, if you look at this, right, and you look at that, it's not a huge difference in terms of inches. It's not like one is a foot forward and one is a foot back. But I tell you what, like the difference between these two positions right here is a massive change in what's going on with tension in the body, what muscles are being worked, how your stability is, and whether or not that's going to transfer to growth or strength, and how your shoulder health is going to be after doing thousands and thousands of reps like that. So we can see in this case, even though we don't have the ability to continue going wider, when we compare them the same, that grip still opens up a lot more versatility and better range of motion, better contractions than the standard fully pronated bar. So if you guys want one of these, you got questions on them, let us know. They're making about 25. So there's going to be 25. They're going to come in this nice, pretty N1 blue. And you can pre-order them now. Once the 25 are gone, they are gone. So if you want to try one of these handles, you want to see, want the benefits that we kind of showed off in here with the wider grip, the change in angle of the handle, and just overall more versatility of having that extra setting as well, then go ahead and jump on. I will post a link if you're on Instagram. The link is actually in my bio. You go on there, there's the 4-in-1 bar. Get it, reserve it while you can. Chances are they're going to be gone in the first day or two that we release this link.